Hi everybody, this is about the visualization and I'm going to show you in this video how I made this art piece using a curve and a bit of geometry. This curve is going to use a array modifier, and this modifier is going to apply this mesh around the curve. This is going to be the outer piece, but there's also going to be a copied version of this geometry that is going to be the inner piece. By making an outer and an inner piece, I am making more geometry that can float in different directions. I tweaked the curve a bit and made a foot, so this is going to be the technical piece which is making all these pieces float. The whole art piece is going to stand on top of a marble pedestal, and the wall behind it is going to be a reddish plaster wall. The piece itself is going to be a copper material. This material is a oxidized copper. To show this material, I've made a 3-point light setup with a highlight light, a shadow light on the left, or a backlight, and the ambient light on top. This ambient light is going to be replaced with an HDRI. The copper material is really cool. It's shiny metallic, and the oxidized green is just a really beautiful color to use. The color of the copper I changed a bit with a hue saturation node. I changed the hue a bit so the copper will be a little bit more gold-like. Here I changed the geometry a bit so it's a bit wider. And by changing the curve, I made the piece a bit more dynamic this way. Changing the offset a bit, making it more interesting. I used a subdivision modifier to make the pieces a bit more organic. Here I needed to change the geometry a bit to make sure it's not going to be too round. I also used a bevel modifier so the pieces have a bit more geometry, so the subdivision modifier doesn't make it all round. Changing the pieces up bit by bit. Here you can clearly see the benefit of having a inner and an outer array modifier. It really makes it feel full. Now I'm starting to make small pieces that float around. There are going to be a lot of pieces. This piece is inspired by a artwork I found on Pinterest. This is a massive piece which I wasn't quite planning to do, so I found the flow of the statue cool, but I wanted to make a floating art piece. So by using the inspiration from that art piece, I started working on this one. All these extra floating bits and pieces add a lot of extra depth. The extra pieces will float in other directions than the pieces from the array modifier, so it gives it way more of a look that all the pieces are loose. Just adding a few more on the side. When all these pieces are in place, I added a noise modifier in the graph editor. By doing this, you can make the coordinates of the pieces go up and down and left and right on the axis, and the noise can be edited through strength and amplitude. So I edited to all the small pieces and made the noise really small, so it only floats a little bit, and the strength is really low, but the curve itself is really small as well, so it just floats really slow up and down and left and right. I also applied it to the array modifier. The array modifier has an offset, and this offset is basically the same as coordinates for the x, y, and z axis, and it applies it random on all the different pieces of the modifier. I later had to apply the array modifier and animate all the individual pieces, because animating the array modifier made Blender crash in the render during the render of the animation. So if you are trying to make the same thing, keep in mind that when you are rendering it, don't animate the array modifier, animate the pieces. Here I edited the base of the piece to give it a more of an organic look. The plan with this piece was to make it look organic, but also man-made. I gave it a symmetrical look using a mirror modifier, and I made sure the base followed the art piece to make it a purposeful single piece. Using the subdivision modifier, I rounded out all the edges. This is a really fun part of the build. I copied the curve, gave the curve some geometry, and added a material that emits light. By giving it a blue-greenish light, I try to mimic the color of the oxidation, so it's all coming together as a single piece. To make sure the lights are properly shown in the final render, I also made a volume scatter box around it. Just adjusting the camera a bit. I tried to make the scene a bit more interesting by changing the pedestal up, but I decided the square one was best. I later added a sign in post you can see at the end of the video to make the pedestal a bit more interesting. The pedestal itself became a white marble and the back wall a reddish plaster wall. Here I am adding the HDRI. I decided to use a different one, and the strength is around 0.3, so it's just an ambient light, and the real light is still coming from the lights I have in the scene. Just adjusting a bit for the fact that the HDRI is now in the scene. Here I edited animated the camera to go around the piece. I started with a hero shot from the bottom, and by parenting the camera to an empty, the camera rotates around the piece, and I also edited the camera to go up, so the final frames of the render is showing the piece from a position that you look down on it. By doing this you can see everything of the piece, and also beneath the floating parts, because we are going to add some extra interesting parts on the bottom. These bottom parts are text circuits. These circuits will emit light as well. Before I edited the plane with the circuit texture on it, I tried to make something that goes into the base of the art piece, but decided a plane with a shrink wrap modifier would suffice as well, so that's what you are going to see here. The image I used was just a circuit image I found via Google search. I used the UV editor to place the geometry on the part that I liked. I plugged the image into the alpha, so you won't see the black parts. Those parts won't emit light. And also plugged it into the emission light. I used the same color as the light in the piece itself, so it will come together as one singular light source. Here I try to adjust the edges a bit, make it follow the round part of the base. Lastly, I added a metal border around the tech. This border is going to use the same copper material as the piece itself. Using a solidify modifier, I give it some geometry. Testing it a bit. This last part is very interesting. Here we are using a plane. This plane is using a fracture shader combined with a wave texture which feeds into the bump. Using this you can refract light, and what this does is you can see the waves going up from the bottom by animating the wave texture, which gives the look that there is a pulsing wave pushing the copper parts upwards, so you get a sense that it could be a real working piece. Here I made sure the waves won't go through the art piece, adjusting the bump a bit and the roughness so you can see the distortion of the air a bit better. Here I tweaked a lot after a test render I did. The pieces could move a bit more, I thought. A lot of tweaking, changing the offsets so the pieces won't flow in the same direction as the others. In this last part I added a spherical gradient texture. I found that the edges of the waves were really visible at the edge of the plane, so by using this node the waves fall off at the edge and you won't notice that it's a plane as much. If you are still watching the video, I really want to thank you for sticking around as long. It was really fun to make this piece, and I hope you enjoyed and learned something as well. I'm just finishing things up now, tweaking it a little, made sure the pieces won't clip through the refraction plane. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you liked what you saw, I hope you subscribe and come back for more, because there will be a lot more of this. Thanks, bye.